Welcome to Waiting on the Trade, a comics book club for people who can't keep up with monthly comics. I'm Matt Ledger.
I'm Patrick Fitzgerald Fleck.
And I'm Catherine Prince.
This month, we're talking about Volume 10 of Saga, the recently returned hit series from Fiona Staples, Brian K. Vaughan, and Phonographics.
Is that really how that's pronounced? Did you check that?
No, I don't know how to check that.
That's not what we
think
do on
it's
this podcast.
It's just pronounced phonographics.
No, it's Phonographics. Now, in case you need a refresher, this volume of Saga picks up 3 years after the tumultuous events of Volume 9. Hazel, her mom, and their found family are still on the run from a variety of forces arrayed against them, and things don't appear to be getting any easier anytime soon. Their spaceship burned down.
But Alana still has, moments to get her tits out. So really?
The same book, right?
Swings and roundabouts, yeah.
Pat, welcome back to the podcast for another rousing discussion of Saga.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Is this the part where you say that you just wanted to talk about Pirate Girl comics, but we roped you into this?
So Matt convinced you to talk about Saga again.
We're selling out. We gotta talk about it while it's still timely. We so rarely get a chance to actually do that.
Wow, I don't think you're supposed to just admit that in the first 5 minutes of your recording, but okay.
I think the
Welcome,
Saga
ladies and
fans-
gentlemen. We are selling out today with a discussion of a timely comic that is a bestseller.
I think the Saga fans would
Look.
appreciate our honesty.
I don't know if it's selling out anyway. It is timely, though.
It is timely. And I mean, I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed this book more than I thought I might enjoy this book, actually, which is good. But before we get into our main discussion questions, you guys, I guess I am also curious, how did you guys find this book generally after the, 3 years and change break between Saga's Volume 9 and 10?
Well, I looked it up online and saw that it was for sale on a place called Amazon.com.
Oh my
You
god,
took the easy
God.
joke.
No.
Surrounded by what? By what?
What?
Well, I don't think that I reread, I mean, I think it's like a month ago that I read this for the first time, so it's hard for me to remember, but I don't think I reread any of the stuff before, and it wasn't hard to just fall back into.
You did reread all of it, right, Pat?
I did reread all of it, yeah. And I found it following the same trend that I was remembering, that it starts off really strong for me. Like, I really love the first 4 or 5 volumes, issues. What are we calling these things? Trades. That's right.
Trades.
Got to keep on brand. And then it slowly loses something, and I'm not quite sure what it does. It does this last volume, trade, picks up a little bit for me, but I'm still not on solid ground with Saga quite yet. So we'll
Not
see
on
where it
solid
goes.
ground, meaning
I'm not quite sure where I stand with Saga at this point.
He's
really
not convinced that it's gonna be satisfying when it's done, I think. Is that what you're saying, Pat?
yeah, I think I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's called Saga, so I understand the story needs to be epic in its tale and like scope, but it's starting to lose me a little bit. So I'm
So
hoping
is
they can
this
pull it
like
off.
a Game of Thrones situation where you're like, I can see it's becoming a dumpster fire, but I'm sticking it through to the end, or like, if it's not holding my interest, I'll just not finish it.
It's not bad by any means. I wouldn't say volume like the last
No,
few volumes
no.
are bad comics. Like, I mean, compared to Game of Thrones, you never want to watch any of Game of Thrones ever again because they fucked the ending that hard. I don't think I have faith in Fiona Staples and Brian Vaughan to pull this a satisfying enough ending. I was truly in love with this series. Like when Matt, you had the first 2-3 trades when you first showed it to me, right? And I
Yeah,
read it
something
all
like that.
within like a half hour. It was real
Immediately,
quick.
yeah.
Yeah. And it sort of died down for me. And maybe that's just a first blush impression of this crazy world that they've created. So I don't know. But to answer your question, this last trade was okay for me.
Okay. I think that actually feeds pretty well into my discussion question. which is, in what ways do you think the series has significantly changed since its start? I think, Pat, you could talk about some of the ways you think maybe it's lost its luster,
I'm
if that's
yeah, I
what
was
you're
trying
interested in.
I was trying to nail down why I have these feelings that I do for this series. And I think it's just because the scope has gotten so much wider, and I think that's just the nature of the story they're telling. So I don't know if they can actually fix that. I guess they could narrow it back down.
Well,
but
we're
at
gonna
this
start
point,
killing side characters soon, Pat, so that'll narrow it a bit.
oh yeah, that's another thing, and then gets into my question later. But
Yeah.
this introduces a lot of new characters and a lot of like side characters that don't have any bearing of the story really, and goes back to side characters that I didn't have any interest in going back to. Abortion Planet.
I thought that was a good scene, actually, though.
Yeah.
Like I think it fleshes her out more, but okay, it's true. Of the side characters that did that, that's not the most egregious. But like all these pirate people, how long you think the frog and the vampire guitar player
I mean, it literally says they're
woman?
not going to be there that long with them right at the end, right? It's
Yeah,
like an
I don't
issue,
think
one
we'll
more
see them
issue,
again.
something like that.
So I don't know. I think it's just moving away from the core story, which was Hazel and her family, and I guess Hazel's family is evolving, and I haven't quite found the outline of it yet. And once I do, maybe it'll have different feelings.
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable. I think there were hints in this one, too, that the story is funneling towards something again in a way that it maybe wasn't in, like, volumes 7 and 8, especially. 'Cause I think there's a lot of that stuff, hints of the robots are gonna switch sides, and that might be a big upheaval in the war. I think that's gonna be, like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a whole arc in and of itself. I think we were talking off mic the other day too about there's hints in the earlier volumes of like stuff that's foreshadowed, and there's hints in this volume too of stuff that's like foreshadowed of Hazel's going to do this at some point in the future. And now that we're moving
Yeah,
into the back half of the series, like some of those have to start happening. So I think
some payoffs.
the train will be going down the right set of tracks again at some point, or I guess less tracks. There will be less trains on less tracks, I think, as we
Sure.
approach the station at the end here. And I think you can kind of see that happening even already. So
Yeah, they're building up Princeling or whatever. Is that his name? Is that his actual name? I don't know.
maybe I don't know.
I don't know what his name is.
Does
but
anyone
he's
say his name in this volume actually? Besides Brobot? Everyone has an alias in this
no.
volume.
Yeah, I think in the previous trade, he signs the letter that he's running away as Princeling.
Princeling.
Like
Okay.
crosses out Squire and puts Princeling.
Princeling Robot
So-
the Fourth.
But yeah, he's the heir of the robot kingdom. So, and they're definitely going to do something with that.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued actually by the scene near the end where they played the weird dinosaurs with lasers game, and there
Yeah.
was that foreshadowing of like we were going to play that game again for bigger stakes. I was like, you're gonna play dinosaurs with lasers game for
I
like,
saw them as more of sock puppets.
yeah, they probably are.
Like Hydras or something.
Yeah, I imagine it as like a 3D tabletop sort of thing where you're like controlling them from here, but they're like rising up like Yu-Gi-Oh cards in Battle City or whatever.
Oh, that's a few references deep there.
No, I got it.
We
It's
all
fine.
got
It's all
it
good.
though, didn't
Okay.
we, Kat? Fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, Catherine Prince.
What do you think, Kat? What were your feelings?
Going back to your original question, which is
Mhm.
how has this series significantly changed since its start? Um, I guess my thoughts are, I mean, it takes place over such a broad scope, and it's still rather unclear how old Hazel even is in the future when she's telling this story, if she's like, grandma age, or if she's just in her 20s or 30s or something.
Right.
So it kind of evolves a little bit like a relationship, maybe. Like at the beginning, you're like, oh, wow, this is great. And then you kind of get to know it, and just like life, it has its ups and downs. And now maybe it's becoming a little bit more plot driven again, whereas the last couple volumes weren't as much. But I guess it's easy to dichotomize things, but there's two different camps of why you might read something, and it's because you want something plot driven, or it's because you just want to enjoy the vibes of a particular story and or world. And it kind of switched, I think, from being plot driven to just vibes, and now it's going back to plot driven a little. Yeah, personally, I also prefer stories that are more plot driven, though the world that they've made is pretty interesting. So
Yeah.
it's a good change for me too. Yeah,
And I do think the vibes are still strong. Like the vibes are all there.
the
Like
vibes are
still
still
it
strong.
still feels like Saga, right? Like you
Some
you
killer
know,
Yeah.
pick it up
vibes.
and like it's Saga. The only stuff
Didn't
I
have any
think,
stormtroopers show up or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
the only
Those
thing.
flame people show up again though, which I wonder is that a species? Like is that a race of torch
I
flame
mean, it must be
people?
right.
The
Yeah,
Flameo Hotmans, yeah.
Yeah,
because they were security guards in like that office building that they raided as well. So I don't know. Anyways.
and I actually didn't realize on first read and kind of had to have it like explained to me. Like I asked Kat at the end of reading it the second time. I was like, wait. Did they actually burn down their house? Because at the beginning of the volume, the flame people are like, "If you come here again, we'll burn down your house," and then their house burns down. So,
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, they did.
and Kat was like, "Yeah, you dummy."
I don't think I caught that either. It's a good call, Cat.
This is why we do a podcast.
This is so mysterious. How could this has happened? Squire left the toaster on.
I do think before we get into stuff that I feel like has changed for the better, because I want to bring this question back around to that before we get off of it. The one thing that I feel like is still here that I think could go away is there's still some of the over the top, like, "Hey, I'm just here to shock you" vibes that I think
Oh,
it crosses the line on here and
the
there.
trigger warning
A trigger
page.
warning one, right? Like we all were gonna say that.
It was very jarring. Like I didn't mind him being like horribly violent when he's talking to a lot like about raping her children in front of him or something like that, or her. But the next page, I'm saying, "Oh, the should have said a trigger warning." It's like, what the fuck is this? What is this? We don't
Yeah,
need
like,
this.
is it a commentary? I don't think it is, but I don't know. I think
Like,
it's
were there
just,
complaints about there needs to be trigger warnings for Saga? Like, maybe I should have done some research about.
I didn't
Oh,
really look
maybe.
into it either, but maybe we'll look
And this
into it for
is
the show
him
notes.
pushing back that, oh, maybe we should have had a trigger. I hope it's not that because that seems really shallow. I don't like the author having to push back at the audience like that. So
Yeah, and
hopefully
we
that's
got
not
a
gonna
little bit
happen.
of the like use of the word woke and stuff in this here too. It's like, oh, we don't need to be cool. Just tell a
Well,
story.
I mean, outside of that scene, it seems like that was the only one where they made reference to the current political situation. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like some of those other ones where I kind of got off of it a little bit, it was a little bit more heavy-handed of just like, okay, yes, this is an allegory for our current situation in the United States. And it kind of reminds me of that, like Matt and I watched this like Bollywood movie called, what was it, Simba, about a
Oh
cop, and
yeah,
it's
the
just like a
cop
fun
one.
cop movie. But then halfway through, it's like, actually, this movie is about don't rape people, and it became like so heavy-handed and tedious. Like,
Yeah, it was actually
okay,
like
there's a way to say that
also
without.
a really bad movie about like it was not the message was good but not presented well. Anyways, that's off topic though.
Yeah.
Nice.
We'll say the other one that I took issue with in here was just the Will and Gwendolyn just deciding to have sex in the middle of nowhere was
Right away.
a
Yeah.
little bit much for me, but
That's kind of in character for them.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
definitely would agree with that. I don't know, maybe it's just I should be used to it at this
You wish that there had
point.
been a trigger warning?
I wish there had been
it's
a
true.
trigger warning. Yeah, I wish someone was like graphic nudity coming up. It did remind me about the controversy where there was the thing going around where like the WB higher ups were like, you can't show Batman like doing oral sex to Catwoman because
Oh,
quote unquote
yes.
heroes don't do that. Which is so
Whoa, oh, wait, what?
yeah, this was a whole thing. I'll when I put this in the show notes as
Wow.
I'm going to do now, I guess I'll
Hilarious,
send it to you,
hilarious
Kat. But
thing.
like yeah, like the WB executives, I think it's because they were gonna do it on the Harley Quinn show, which I don't particularly love, but like whatever, it's its own thing. And they were like gonna do that, and the WB executives were like, "No, heroes don't do that." And then the next day on Reddit, it was just post after post, just like making fun of the executives and their like vision of Batman and or heroes as people who don't do that.
You know, that might actually be why there's so many scenes of men going down on their partners. Because
Possible.
it happens
I mean,
all
it
the
probably just
time.
happens anyways. But like the Will's specifically doing that on panel in this book reminded me of that a lot. So,
That's funny.
but turning the question towards stuff that I think has significantly changed, or the better, or like in an interesting way, I think this volume is the first volume to me where it felt like Hazel was actually the main character of the story. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys got that same vibe in this
I
volume in a
mean,
way you
yeah,
did
the
in the
main
others.
character was a baby for a lot of that, which like,
No, I know.
cool, she sits around.
Yeah, but I guess even at the start of the story, you don't really think of like how much time are they going to have to get through to get to a point where this baby is actually a person who I think the scene that really sold that for me was the scene again with her and Princeling at the end, where she's like in the driver's seat of this like emotional talk about their feelings. Like, oh, hey, this is a real person that is like having a real conversation and I don't know, making good choices also. So
Yeah, it's been what, 3 years since the
yeah,
previous trade? And yeah, I think she has a lot more agency in her story for sure. Because even when she was like in the prison facility, she was basically just following her grandmother or what other authority figure told her to do. But now she's doing her own shit.
yep, stealing stuff, wearing hats.
Yeah, listening to Fartbox, you know.
Oh, that's such a good seg, but I had one more thing I wanted to talk about.
Damn it. Okay, well.
You almost did it.
The art
Matt.
is also good. Okay, now we can go to the next one.
Not just good, I think noticeably better. I was looking at so the obvious comparison is the first page of volume 1, which has Alana like mid-birthing this is how
Yeah.
an idea becomes real versus the first page of 55, which is this is how an idea stays alive. And like just
I would say it's not like better. I would say
I think it's better.
it's much more detailed.
Just the lines are a lot cleaner too. Like it's a lot less sketchy. Like it feels like there's a better command of what's going on to me. But
Mm,
I'm willing to be outvoted.
I keep noticing like, wow, Hazel really looks like Marco, which I think is pretty cool
Yeah,
and
that is
tough to
cool.
do to be like, yep, this character actually does look sort of like an amalgam of other two characters.
Yeah, actually, looking at him on volume 1 too, she kind of has his nose a little bit. A little bit.
She's got his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the panel I really like is when they're introducing all the pirate band members and they introduce the guy who plays that weird instrument.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
it's just like, wait, what's a guitar? That panel, just I like the expression that they used. It's really good.
So while we're quickly discussing favorite panels, I had two that I was thinking about, and it's either the meme one with Lion Cat, where the Will is like in the middle of saying a sentence, and Lion Cat's just like absolute bullshit lying. Like he just like pops into
Oh,
the
yeah.
panel from the bottom left, or she just pops into the panel from the bottom left.
Yeah.
It's either that one or it's the one I think it's in the third to last issue, so it'd be like chapter 4 or whatever, where Hazel and Guitar are sitting next to each other and they just have like the same pose because Hazel's trying to mimic everything Guitar does. It's just like
Yeah, that was subtle but pretty cool.
yeah, that one I liked also. Kat, did you have a favorite panel or page while we're on this one?
The one that comes to me is like, they're like, I have a file here full of all these people that Hazel's met, and you have to kill them all. And it's like, picture
Yeah.
of Petrichor in a shady alley, picture of that fish guy at an ATM, and like this very clearly posed, like cute postcard of Goose being like,
Just
hi.
on vacation
Goose
or whatever.
It's just so photogenic. You can't take a bad picture of Goose.
It just doesn't like where did they even get that picture?
The opening page of issue 57, which is just
Oh.
Goose frolicking with a bunch of cute, like, wolf babies. It's just like, okay, throw fan service at me. That's fine.
Sensitive side means like, oh,
Yeah.
we're back on that planet you don't like, but look
Look,
at the cute
It's
things.
cute.
Oh, Goose. I did like, yeah, little picnic Goose.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you guys have any other ways the series has significantly changed that you want to talk about? Otherwise, we can move on to Kat's question in a much less natural seg than you would set up, Pat. Hearing
I said we
none.
jump
I was
in.
gonna say hearing none. Kat, do you want us to tell us what your question is?
Yeah, so there's a sequence when Robot Guy and Hazel, Squire and Hazel, are in the tree house listening to Hazel's new album that she stole. So for a little bit of context, Hazel says, when describing this song that they're listening to, that's this awesome song that they both love. It's the one you first heard in the background of that chain restaurant where you were having lunch with your road tripping family. Enraptured, you asked your parents what was playing, and they replied, I have no idea, but it's terrible. And in this moment, you began to understand that the universe no longer belonged to the generation who raised you. So, my question was, what is your version of Assassins of Sadness by Fartbox, which is Hazel's song of choice here?
I'm gonna make you go first, Kat, because it's your question.
You're gonna make me go first. Oh, and here you had this whole answer planned out, though.
Yeah, I still have it. I'm gonna use my powers as host
Oh,
Hmm.
oh.
to compel you to go first.
The power of host compels you. Oh, who can argue with that? Yeah, and I guess like broadly speaking, it can be a song, but it also like wouldn't have to be a song. Um, I guess a few things came to mind immediately. I didn't think about it too long and hard because I came up with my question at the last minute. Um, but yeah, like back when I used the radio in the car to listen to new music, or occasionally you could go into like a Barnes and Noble or a Borders and then like go straight to the back of the store where you could listen to like pieces of songs from albums. And I would just like spend the whole time in the store back there, like listening to different albums. Because that was the only way I could get a hold of them because we didn't have like Spotify or probably even YouTube at that point, like in the early aughts. And this song came out that I really loved. And of course my parents hated most of the stuff I listened to. So like that part wasn't like too shocking, but this song was kind of different because it was Linkin Park from their Hybrid Theory album. Oh, what was it? It was like number 8 or something on it. The I think it's called In the End. It's been a while. Yeah, In the End. I really was just like all about this song, but I liked it so much that every time it came on the radio, I'd turn it off right away because I was like, I can't get sick of this song. I don't want to listen to this song too many times.
You gotta keep it
Um,
pristine.
Oh yeah, my parents like that about it because they'd be like, "Oh, here's that song again." She turned the radio off. And then every once in a while, I'd be like, "All right, I'm going to treat myself and listen to more than the first 3 seconds of this song." And even now, when I hear the first 3 seconds of this song, I'm like, "Oh my God, I have to turn it off." No, I've gotten over that.
You
Um,
do still do that sometimes though, if you're like into a song and you want to like keep it fresh, you still sometimes just like change it to something else.
yeah, I don't know if you guys get this the way I do, but like if I hear a song and I'm just like totally in love with it, I become haunted by it and it plays in repeat in my head for sometimes days, occasionally as long as a week or more. And it just like it won't stop playing. So sometimes the only way to get rid of it is to like just listen to it a bunch of times until it goes away. And sometimes you want to avoid it so it stops playing on repeat in your head.
I think you know that I don't get this quite as much as you do. Like not anywhere near as much as you do, but like I do get it sometimes still. Like Bastille stuff, especially I'll get that with
The hashtag Matt's favorite band. Yeah, I
hashtag.
even keep a list of like, I wouldn't even call these earworms. It's just like, it becomes difficult to live because the songs just get stuck in my, oh yeah, this year the worst one was We Don't Talk About Bruno.
Oh
Because I'd be
God.
like, forget it. And
Oh
then like
no.
every once in a while someone would like sing a bar of it or it would play in like a
Or it
casino or
was our
someone named
realtor's
Bruno.
name.
Yeah, and it would just be in my
Ah.
head constantly. Which isn't really okay. So that was like, hey, these are this is the first song I really loved, and it was like, oh my God, this is great. But that like is a little bit of a divergence, I guess, from what Hazel's talking about, where it's like, yeah, this is the thing I listened to, and it made me realize that the people like, because I guess when you're a kid, you're just like, oh yeah, grown-ups know everything, and then eventually you're like, wait a minute, they
There's
don't.
other stuff out there.
Yeah, and then like I even remember there was like a commercial that was also on TV around that same time with like a bunch of teens standing around looking like confused, and it was just like, eventually there comes a time when you realize that you have grown up. And I was like I remember watching this commercial with all the confused teens and being like, I don't think I had a moment of clarity for that. It was more like a gradual thing where like, oh yeah, I don't really want to play with dolls anymore. I'm not sure when that happened, but it doesn't really hold interest for me anymore. So it's kind of cool if you can like have it align with liking a particular song
Yeah.
or a life
Honestly, I don't know
experience.
if anyone has like a, well, maybe I'm sure some people do, but I think most people probably don't have a pure moment where it's like, oh, I am grown up now. Can I tell you before we get too far away from it that I'm so impressed that while forgetting the name of the song, you remembered the correct track number on the album?
It was number 8.
Yeah, I looked it up.
I know, because I feel like I'd have to skip that one when I was like listening to my Walkman on the bus.
Listening to
I'd be
7
like, "That's
and
number 8."
done. 9. That's
Uh,
beautiful. So I decided to go with a song also. I feel like there's an on-brand version of my answer to this question where it's a comic book, but I don't think it actually is that because those have just been around forever for me.
I'm just picturing you like reading a comic book and then turning the last page and setting it down and being like, huh, grown-ups don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Okay, side story to the real story. I will tell
Oh
you,
boy.
my mother bought me a Catwoman graphic novel once, I think just because it had Catwoman on the front of it. And I don't think she realized that this was a graphic novel where this version of Catwoman was dealing with the fact that she used to be a prostitute and stealing stuff from her pimp. And also,
So like a graphic novel.
it was probably more mature than I should have had at the time.
Well, then was it your grandmother that bought Watchmen for you? Something
That
like
was
that?
like at least in high school, I think, at that point.
Okay.
A bit
Sure.
mature for you though.
Yeah. Actually, the song though that I was going to talk about is a song that I found in high school because I think you probably know this specifically, Kat. Like, I'm a musically sheltered boy, and for a long time, most of the music I'd listen to is just stuff that would like find its way to me either from my parents or the radio or my brother. And so in high school, I became friends with more people who actually like knew more stuff about music. And one of the albums and songs they introduced me to was Motion City Soundtrack's Everything Is Alright. And that's like one of my anthem songs at this point. And I think that song's just like so radically different from a lot of the stuff that everyone else in my life had listened to at that point that it makes it my Assassins of Sadness by Fartbox. So
Nice.
and we'll definitely make sure to, if I can, like I'll find all these and put them in the show
YouTube
notes so
links.
people don't have to be like, what is that? Why is it different than weird country music? Pat, what's your Assassins of Sadness?
Yeah, I enjoy music. I love it, but I never really got into it as much as my friends did. So I don't think I have a song. In fact, I think my dad was more into music than I was because, God, Matt, do you remember in college when Mike would not stop playing Bulletproof, that LaRue song?
Yes.
Oh.
It was literally like for the entire week, that's the only thing we would hear.
Dude, I would hear it literally as I was going to sleep at night. I would hear it. Like, and then
Yeah,
it would
just a
haunt
ba
my
ba ba ba
dreams.
ba ba ba. It's like, oh my God, stop, Mike. So we were ready to kill Mike. It's like if I hear that one more time. And that weekend, my dad was coming up to drive me back home. And guess what song he had playing in the car when I get in? It's like, what? So,
Welcome to the long car ride.
Then he played
so I
it
think
for
my
the
dad was
whole hour.
more in tune with what the current music scene was. But no, I would say I think I want to go with an anime thing because I got to go with the nerd answer because I don't have the music. I really got into the Miyazaki films as a kid, and my parents did not really understand my fixation for it.
Really? That's
Even now,
kind of
when I try to pull
surprising,
in like a
actually.
yeah, I don't know, like they didn't dislike it, but they certainly weren't drawn in as much as I
They
was.
seem like they
So,
would
like
be Miyazaki people. That's actually surprising.
my neighbor
Yeah.
Totoro and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know if that speaks to a generational gap so much as a cultural one, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, possibly. I tried to do more like mature animes. I tried to introduce my dad to like Ghost in the Shell and that kind of stuff. Just never clicked.
That's one I've never actually been able to get into yet. I think I've
Yeah,
tried it a
I'd
couple
stick with
times.
Totoro.
It's so good, you guys. You're wrong.
It's on the list. I mean, as you know, the list is years long at this point, but it's on the list.
It's so good.
Do you have a specific movie that would be your Assassins of Sadness by Miyazaki?
A movie?
Like my favorite Miyazaki, or like what one?
Yeah, or which,
I'd
or
have
not
to say,
even your favorite. Which one's the one that's like, oh, this is the one that like.
I mean, probably Totoro. I'm probably not alone that like I rented that movie repeatedly from our local video store. Like we should have just bought the thing. We probably paid for it like 3 or 4 times over.
I mean, it's
I don't know,
possible you
just
might not
something
have been
about
able to
like
buy it at that point. It was back in the day when you
that's
actually couldn't
true.
track everything down.
That
Yeah.
was my first Ghibli movie too. Or
Yeah.
Ghibli.
Ghibli. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's just like the fantasy, the world, and like the way that they drew like nature in that is just so captivating. It really captured my interest as a child. That I don't know. And yeah, but for whatever reasons, my parents just weren't into it. It's like, oh, it's that Asian film again. Okay, well,
That
all right.
weird, rumbly monster thing.
Yeah, right.
Can I tell you, I have not actually seen that movie until semi-recently. Kat, when did we watch Totoro recently?
I don't know. It was probably within the last few years. I know I wanted to rewatch it
I don't
recently.
think I.
Whenever we had, oh no, they all showed up on HBO Max.
Oh, right, yeah. So it's
I was
definitely
like,
within the
I'm
last
putting all
couple
these in the
years.
Mm,
list.
So it's definitely within when we moved to Minnesota then. Yeah,
Ah,
I
they
hadn't
still
seen
didn't
it.
have Castle in the Sky up there though.
that's a good one. I don't. It might be just be the kind of thing where if you catch it at the right time at the right age, it like molds you as a
I
person.
mean,
But
that
if you
happens
go
with
to
a
it
lot of stuff,
later,
right? Like,
yeah, like people really love the Legend of Zelda games, and I don't care about any of them all. But everyone's like, "Oh, this is amazing."
I've heard
It's too
enough
old, can't
weird
go back.
mixes with like that sample, that stupid fairy going, listen,
Yes,
a little traumatized by Zelda
that's the thing
too.
that gets stuck in my head every once in a while. Speaking of
Hey!
earworms.
nostalgia's a hell of a drug. But yeah, Totoro, Ghibli, just anime in general, just like captured me young and hasn't let me go yet. So
I mean, that's a good
that's
one.
what I'll say.
All right, shall we move on to the end?
Yeah,
Oh,
the uplift. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Oh no, I was gonna say, oh,
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 Ah!
oh, the end. Yes, to
Here again at the final hour.
leave our listeners with an uplifting question. That's what I do. So mine is, of the characters who are remaining in this story, who do you think is actually going to survive till the end?
Hazel.
Yeah, that's it.
Probably good call. Probably good call. Though she is a native born from that planet, so maybe she's a ghost at the end.
I don't know if it works that way.
I don't know. She was born on it.
Huh. That's
I
interesting
would have to go
though.
back and look at that actually. I was actually
Oh,
wondering the other day if this whole thing is like Hazel telling this story to her kids, so we're gonna get an extra generation at the end of this.
I feel like that's too
Heidi.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's possible.
I could actually, now that I said it, I could actually see them turning her into a ghost as like a surprise in like the last volumes. Like, oh nope, Hazel died. But yeah, I just tried to like my part of my issue with the way the story has been going is that lots of the characters that I enjoyed got
Are
killed
dying.
it. Got killed it real good. And of the ones that are left, I don't have as strong an attachment to. And maybe they'll build it up again. I have all the confidence they could do that. But if they keep killing them off, it's going to be a Song of Ice and Fire all over again. And the story's going to unravel. And we're going to be stuck with a horrible ending. The season's going to be ruined.
I was gonna
She
say, I
didn't hear
think
the
I
bells.
think they're working on establishing some new people that are gonna be your new leads, like we talked about with Hazel and even with Squire, and like Alana's gonna die at some point, right? Like we've all accepted this.
Yeah, Lana probably isn't going to make it to the end. I don't know. Hopefully Goose sticks around.
I feel like that one would be, they've just like built him up to be this cute, fun little guy. And if they kill him, that would probably be a
I was
mistake.
gonna say, if
Like,
they kill Goose, there
it
will
would
be
upset
riots.
people.
There will be riots on the
Yeah,
internet.
in a way, killing Marco wouldn't, like that would probably not be a good
We'll be
call.
on part of killing Lion Cat, right? People
Yeah,
would
I feel like they wouldn't do
riot.
that either.
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of, I guess maybe it started in the mainstream with, again, a Game of Thrones reference here, where it's like, oh, the idea that you can have a story and sometimes not all the main characters will survive till the end is kind of great. I mean, that's how life works. It's not formulaic. It keeps you guessing as long as you don't, take it too far and be like, we're gonna just kill everyone off. Unless you do it tastefully, I guess.
I think there's something to that too, with like how we end up with so many side characters that kind of just spin off and don't recur in this too. That's also a thing that happens in life, especially if you travel a lot, like
Yeah.
Alana and Hazel and Marco RIP do. Like you encounter people that you see and you interact with, and they're really important for that period, and then you kind of don't talk to them so much again, or like you
Yeah,
send them
like
an email every once in a while, like that sort of
the
thing.
mantis teacher in the facility,
Yeah.
and then that bat woman that helped Marco out. That sort of had a fling for a little bit, but
Oh yeah, the Batwoman. I was thinking
yeah.
of the Meerkat people that were like,
Oh
"No,
yeah,
it's fine," and they all died. That was sad.
I give you my dark horse contender for who's gonna make it to the end.
sure.
I think the Will's gonna make it to the end.
I think so too.
I think he might
I
be
don't.
utterly ruined by the end, and like you know how we used to play Fiasco a reasonable amount, and like there'd be the epilogues where you just talk through like how your character is just utterly ruined forever as a result of the events of the story. I think it might be one of those, but I think he's gonna make it.
I don't think you can ruin him. He's already kind of a degenerate. He's
Nah,
pretty different than how he started, He's just like this little weird dude.
Do you know what I think is going to happen?
Mm.
I think Sophie's going to have to kill the Will.
Yeah.
I think the Will is going to be hired by, I don't know, the Robot Kingdom or something, be on the wrong side of it. And I think Sophie, the slave girl that he rescued, is going to have to take his life to stop him. I think it's going to happen. I'm going to call it right now.
We should just
I
start
kind of
writing fan
see
fiction.
this whole thing is just like it's a whole story about the younger generation getting stuck with all the nonsense of the older generation,
Hmm.
just like we'll see periodically throughout human history, and they just don't really want to deal with it. Like right now, what we're seeing with a lot of Gen Z, they're just like, consent is important and it's okay to go to therapy, and like don't really understand what the big deal is about some of these racist like things that society's been doing for a long time. It kind of feels like it's running parallel a little bit to that with the new generation that's coming of age in the US sort of thing, which like this started coming out before I think they'd really gotten their cultural identity in the mainstream. So maybe that's not like its intention, but it does seem like it's running pretty close to, American culture in real time from some of the allegories it's had in its stories. So it kind of seems to me like the young people in it that started out like Sophie and Squire and Hazel, I think they'll probably all make it to the end and just help shape the world into something that doesn't, well, I guess in this case, the universe into something that doesn't suck.
Sure.
Ooh,
It'll be
that's a
about
very
them. It's basically sounds like them
optimistic.
coming of age. No, but I think that's what it will
I
be.
would be
I
surprised
mean, I
if the
hope that's
universe
what it would be.
doesn't suck by the end of the story, actually.
It's always gonna suck. No, but like the giant mess of war
Well, the
that doesn't even make
war,
sense
yeah.
anymore is like the elephant in the room that's always there. And it seems like this whole story is leading up to resolving that by showing people Hazel's existence. They've kind of seeded that she's gonna become addicted to playing the guitar. So I see her as being the new, what was that novelist guy with the eye?
Oh, Feist or
Like lots of
Heist?
novelists have eyes.
Yeah, she'll be the new Feist, except she'll be the one, um, like she'll be sharing it via music instead of the written word.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, like you saw that scene where there's very subtly alluded to the secret book club where the guards and the prisoners
Oh
read
yeah,
that
for
book
sure.
together. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think their world is ready for it and they're going to be the ones to do it. So I think all the youths will be there.
Okay.
I hadn't even
That'd be
really
nice.
considered
And
that the
Goose.
war could actually end. I don't know if the war is gonna end.
You hadn't considered that,
It
really?
feels too. Is it weird for me to say it feels too optimistic for this book for the war to end? Like this book seems like it has like such a very jaded view of like systems that involve governments and peoples and like things that are like this book seems to me like it's very much individual people can do individual actions, but like those actions don't really change the systems they live in for the most part. But maybe
That's surprising to me because I'm seeing individual people doing individual actions, and very gradually you have a buildup of momentum that's starting to make a
yeah,
difference.
which is possible actually. Like I think you could be right for sure.
Yeah, like more people are interested in Fade Away. More people are interested in this book.
Yeah. I don't think the war will end. I think there might be like it'll end with like a ceasefire or like a peace treaty.
Doesn't that mean the war is ended? Or are
Touche.
we still at war
Touche.
with
Touche.
Russia
I
right now?
mean, maybe like a meeting of the heads of whatever governments are leading
You
the
don't think
war.
it's a
Like there'll
someone
be a
wins. You think it's a hey, we're just gonna call the whole thing off situation.
no. I'm saying like it's moving towards that is what I'm trying to say. Like
That's surprising to me too. Like they've introduced a bunch of those heads of government. I don't know if we've seen the Wreath one, but like across the board, they're either idiots or like ridiculously bloodthirsty. I can't imagine them being around
what was the
and ending a war.
unicorn lady right for a
Oh yeah,
while?
the unicorn. Yeah, she's just a career
I'm
bureaucrat.
pretty sure Evelyn is it Evelyn
Mm.
is
Gwendolyn?
now the Gwendolyn.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Oh, Gwennon?
she's higher up
Is
at this
now
point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I see all the people in power now. Like, it seems like that's the way it'll end up going because I guess it depends if it stays as a plot-driven thing, which
mhm.
maybe it'll come and go, or if it'll be more about vibes again. But yeah, I can see it like the plot is probably going to start coming together. How far? This is volume 10. How many volumes are there?
This is
Gonna
the
be
beginning of the back half.
so there'll be 19
There will
or
be
20?
18.
18. Yeah, so now they'll have to like start getting the pieces in play.
Like I don't ever want to see Hazel become
Ghost?
I've just blanked on
Ghost.
her name. No, I could see that. That's fine. No, I don't want to see her turn into a Hunger Games main character. His name was
Katniss?
Katniss.
something. Katniss Everdeen or whatever her name is. Like I don't want to turn her into that. And like that was a really weird character arc. And I don't
What?
see that for like I don't want Hazel to become the symbol for
Yeah, see,
freedom
it doesn't
fighters.
feel like
Oh.
a chosen one thing to me either.
Okay, well, can I just say Katniss was not a chosen one.
Well, she was forced into the role, but anyways.
That wasn't quite the right trope, I think. But yeah,
Okay.
I get what you're saying.
But
But
like
it kind of seems like it's kind of inevitable that she will be, right? She's this cool, like, amalgam of two different warring nations. Like, eventually they're building up to, like, someone will see
I
her.
mean, the government
I
sure
feel,
seems set to make her into one by hunting her
I
so much.
feel like
Yeah.
the narration is like repeatedly said that I'm not a war hero. I don't do anything crazy. This is just a story of how my parents met and I was made and how I've lived. So it's never like the narrator has never indicated that she has a bigger purpose or like machination with the war. So I don't know. We'll have to see.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends because with the Hunger Games, like, she's sort of analogous to a war hero, Katniss, but she's also the symbol of the revolution. So I could see, like, I agree, like, probably not going to be a war hero, but still symbol of the revolution being Hazel's deal.
So I don't want her to do that. So I'm hoping that's not what they do. We'll see.
So you want her to just live a normal life as a grocery store clerk?
Well, I just don't want like that story's been told and it seems too rote for
It
Saga.
does also
I'm
feel
hoping they do
tidy
more
in the same
interesting
way
things.
that what did we talk about earlier that we said was tidy?
Her
Oh,
having
her
kids and telling the
telling the
story to
story
them
to her kids.
over.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that would be disappointing.
yeah.
Now you should go to sleep. This is your
I mean,
father,
if they're an allegory for Gen Z, they're not going to have kids anyway, so.
Ayo.
King Robot. the 8th or whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Can I also just say on a completely random tangent, I've never seen one of these robot people eat, but like, Square got really close to eating that candy bar. How the heck do they eat food? Has he got a
Pretty
floppy drive in
sure.
there?
I'm pretty sure there was a scene in the earlier trade where that weird contract killer, the one with the 2 heads,
Mm-hmm.
don't remember
Oh,
what they were
yeah.
called. There's a dying robot and he asks for like a bit of whiskey and he dies before he can drink it. And I say, oh, damn, I wanted to see how he
does
drink.
So I hope that's resolved before the end.
Well, hopefully we'll get that invaluable of it.
Yeah, I don't know. When Prince Robot's head was ripped off, like there's not much there. Just a bunch of
Wires and
blood
stuff.
and a couple
Yeah.
wires. Yeah. So I don't know.
All right, well, we're going to do recommendations, but I feel like we should just stick to our Assassins of Sadness as our recommendations.
There you go.
Song and
If you
and
like this
anime
episode of the
recommendation.
podcast, go find those things. I'll have links to them in the show notes.
Perfect.
Or think about your own.
Or
True.
what is your own Assassins of Sadness by Fartbox?
By Fartbox, yes.
With that, though, I think that is going to do it for this month's discussion of Saga. As always, if you want to get in touch with Pat or myself, you can email us at waitingonthetrade@gmail.com. You can also find more comics-related goodness at mattreadscomics.com. Pat, thanks for coming on and talking about Saga, even though I forced you to.
One of these times you're going to have your own comic.
You'll get to pick
bring.
a
It'll be
comic
great.
soon, Kat.
You're welcome.
I hope you had a good time.
Under
Yeah.
duress.
Under duress.
No, it's great. I'm glad we get to talk about Saga because it is an important comic for me.
At this point, we will talk about it one more time, and that is I'm trying to figure out the math for what
It'll be
8
on.
volumes away is. 4 years from now? 4 years
Whoa.
from now.
They'll take a hiatus. It'll be longer. Don't
So
worry.
put it on your calendar. I don't think they will take a hiatus at this point, but we'll see.
Life comes at you fast.
True, man. Who knows?
For everything else, there's MasterCard.
God damn it.